Why, hello everyone, this is Classic Homesteading Practices, and today we are talking about garden tools. Mainly because we want our lives to be as easy as possible when it comes to the garden, but I don't want to give you a gnarly list of 20, 30, 50 different tools, because I want to make it as efficient and as non-costly as possible. So I'm going to give you my 3 most beloved of tools. I'm also going to talk about more tools afterwards, just so you can get a feel of what tools are out there and also see what you may want for your toolbox. And just think about, as a new gardener or as a gardener who may not have other tools that we talk about, maybe you want to check them in or check them out. Before we get into this, I would like to tell you that I have decided to put the podcast onto YouTube. It's only the audio, but mainly it's for people who've decided that they necessarily don't like using their streaming service, or they don't want to use Spotify or Apple Podcasts, anything like that. You now have the option to use YouTube. I also have a Facebook page if you wanted to leave comments, ask questions, build a community, talk to me, share your ideas, your thoughts with me when it comes to gardening or homesteading in general. That is now all available on, again, Facebook. And if you wanted to put comments or build a community through YouTube, that is something we can do as well. But for now, let's get into the tools. So, for me and my gardening style, my way of life is to be as efficient as possible and to make the garden as easy to deal with as possible. And I do it with 3 main tools. And yes, it is because I am just that into multi-tools and I am that lazy. I do not like to lug around tools with me. I find that I lose a lot of tools if I have many of them out with me. And so just having my key 3 tools, it makes my life easier and it makes me happier. I have not lost any of them. One, because one of them is actually pretty large, so it would be very hard for me to lose it. And the other one is strapped to me the entire time. I have lost the 3rd tool every once in a while, but not to the point where I get concerned. I'm always able to find it again. And I've had these tools for years now, and I've purchased them because they're reliable and sturdy, and I know I won't have to get them anytime soon again. So these tools are, 1, a wagon, and I use it for moving, hauling dirt, anything that is going into the garden or out of the garden for that matter, like produce, gravel, sand, dirt, sometimes a chicken if necessary. Cans, I have moved animals in it. I moved other tools in it. And the reason why I decided to get a wagon is because it is so much easier to haul things in a wagon and pull it than using your body. When you start using your body with large amount of weight, you start to hurt. You start to break down your body, and your body is literally the best tool for life. So trying to make it a little bit more efficient through other tools is how I like to do it. So my wagon is definitely my favorite tool, actually, out of all of these, because it is my heavy hauler. Now, I have the, it's a Gorilla black wagon. It holds about 300 to 400 pounds of weight. The actual bed clips off so I can dump dirt out of it if I want to. Though the only problem is that it was $100 to purchase. So yeah, that was a very spendy purchase, and I would not recommend it to people unless you feel like you want a wagon that's going to last you 10 years. I do not have to change the tires on this wagon because they are not inflatable. Unless one literally comes bursting off because I've loaded 1,000 pounds. I'm over-exaggerating with that weight, but more than the recommended amount of weight way too many times. I don't have to worry about the tire. I don't have to worry about getting new parts as long as I keep it in a sheltered area, and it's also galvanized, so it doesn't rust very easily. No, this is not sponsored by Gorilla. It's just a really good wagon. I've loved it for years. It is an anniversary present from my husband, actually. So, ladies, gentlemen, if you want to do that for your significant other, do it. It's worthy of the purchase. I've also gotten dirt for an anniversary present. Yes, I love it. That is just how I love it. There's no other way to put it. But anyway, enough about that. So, a wagon. And personally, I say check Craigslist, check your local garage sales, because instead of getting a little, 4-wheel wagon, go ahead and get a wheelbarrow, because it's the same thing, except, you have the one wheel in the front, you have the spokes in the back. It still carries that weight. It still is going to be that helper instead of making your body do it for you. Don't get brand new. You don't need brand new. If you see something that looks fine or maybe has a little bit of rust on it, a little bit of dings here and there on it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be fancy to work. It just needs to be able to do the job. And I would rather you go out and get something for $5, $10, $15 instead of going to Home Depot, Lowe's, and buying brand new $50, sometimes $100 for a wheelbarrow. It's dumb and it's unnecessary. And for people with small pockets, it's not worth it. Not worth it. Speaking from experience. But it is worth getting something to carry the heavy load. Now, for the next thing, it's very obvious, but at the same time, it's not mentioned enough. Getting a regular spade, long-handled shovel is going to be your mercy. It makes moving dirt easy. It makes moving a lot of things easy. The biggest thing and the biggest reason why I put it on here, instead of a pick, which was a very close side-by-side tool that I wanted to put in as my second favorite. But the reason why I didn't put a pick up here is because you can do more with a shovel than a pick. It's not the job of a pick to move dirt up and haul it somewhere else. That is the job of a shovel. It literally is the hauler of dirt. You can also tear up the ground, get rid of grass, get rid of bushes with a shovel. You are able to take care of and move ground right out from something with a shovel. And also because it is a long handle, you are making sure that you have the proper leverage. Make sure to get a good solid wood handle shovel, or an aluminum one, but do not get a galvanized steel one because they do rust, and if you accidentally leave it out in the rain, you're going to have to scrub that stuff off. It is not fun. And maybe it'll hold for the first couple times you accidentally leave it out in the rain. But again, it will happen. It will rust, and you're going to have to take it off. Because if you don't, it's going to tarnish, and sometimes, over a period of time, that handle is going to shear off of your shovel head. Speaking from experience. But again, as long as you take care of your tools, they'll take care of you. Making sure that you have a long-handled shovel. Again, you have that space on the bottom or the top of the head where you can plant your foot, bury that head in the ground, take the top of the handle, shimmy it about, lever out the dirt, move it, haul it, and do what you will with that dirt. And again, that's how you move bushes. That's how you transplant, well, raspberries, blueberries, and many other kind of perennials, is through getting a shovel and taking it out of the ground. So even though it's a very simple tool, it's a really nice tool. And yes, unfortunately, I have left that tool out in the field before. That's the tool that I lose the most often, but it's reliable. I'm able to find it again, and I'm able to use it most of the time, except for the one time that, I got a galvanized steel handle, and it rusted. 4 times later, it sheared off on me, and I've been using wood handles ever since, and I love it. Mostly they're oak, or they are sealed cedar from what I've seen. Also white pine. And those woods are they're hardy, they're hardwoods, and they get the job done. So that is my opinion on just get a good shovel, and it'll take care of you. And now the third and final one that I love the most, and I don't know how many of you have heard of this tool before. It is a beautiful multi-tool called the Hori Hori. It is a Japanese tool. It has been around for a very long time, and it has been popping up in America, mass-produced and hopefully picked up by a lot of people in the last couple of years. In all honesty, I say that the popularity has risen in the last couple of years. The Hori Hori in America has been around, I want to say, for at least longer than a decade. But it's the coolest thing because it does so many different jobs. I don't need other tools when I have my Hori Hori. So it is not only a shovel, it is also a knife and a saw. And it has a notch hooked out into the blade to cut things like sticks, brush, grass. I've even cut bags open with the dang thing of dirt when necessary, with the side of the knife, with the saw part of the Hori Hori, and with that notch. So beautiful multi-tool. I use it all the time when it comes to transplanting, when it comes to getting rid of brush, getting rid of roots, taking out bushes as well, sawing off branches of trees, which you need a really good Hori Hori for that because unfortunately, like I said, they're mass produced. So when you buy a $15 Hori Hori, you're getting what you paid for. I will say that the Fisher company makes a cheap Hori Hori that's actually pretty decent. That's the one that I got for $20 over at Home Depot. And the blade has done me good for about 2 years now. You can always sharpen it, which I definitely recommend getting into, is learning how to use a whetstone or a sharpening stick for your tools, just to keep them nice and honed so that they'll stay good and sharp. Also, if your hori hori has little measurements on there, it helps with digging out inches for transplants again, or for doing seeds. It also is a really nice thing for taking care of anything that you would do with a knife. So, I mean, there is the equivalence that your hori hori is kind of like a Bowie knife, so it's a lot larger. So it takes care of things that that you would do with a Bowie knife. Again, clearing things out, but I've used it for taking off apple tree branches and splicing them. So I would cut it off with a hori hori. I'd split the green part open with the hori hori, and then I would go ahead and put it on another branch of a different apple tree, or a different tree in general. So those three are my favorites. And again, these are all manual tools. These are tools that I use on a day-to-day basis when it comes to pruning, digging, gathering things, so on and so forth. And with a hori hori, I should mention this, they should always come with a sheath, which is really convenient because you can put it on your belt, or you can stick it on your person somehow with creating a strap. So if you like to wear dresses or jumpsuits, it's always nice to have that on your body, and so you don't lose it. But those are my three favorites. Other ones that I will definitely honorably mention really quickly are hoes. Bad humor. Sorry. Which are made specifically for cutting up the earth, aeration, making the dirt that has been compacted light and fluffy, and getting your garden beds ready to turn over. So if you ever have a turnover crop like dandelions or clover, beans, you can use a hoe to dig them up and pull them, and then turn them over in the bed to give nutrition to the soil. I love hoes. Again, it's a long-handled item, so it doesn't hurt your back. Yes, of course, it's manual labor, so you're going to be feeling it, but it feels good at the end of the day. Something to know about a hoe is that it has an edge, and because you're going to be working sometimes in rocky soil, you need to make sure to sharpen your hoe edge. It makes it work so much better. I have a 30-year-old hoe that I grabbed from my friend when his grandfather passed away. I sharpened up the edge and it works amazingly. Also, let's talk about pruning shears. Pruning shears are great, well, for their namesake. They're great for pruning. They take off leaves, branches, bushes, roses, anything that has to do with plants. You use pruning shears to take away part of the plant, whether it's sickly or dying or already dead. And there are multiple sizes of pruning shears depending on what the use is for. I have tiny needle nose plier looking pruning shears for anything that is delicate work, that I'm shearing off tomato blossoms, taking off any kind of tiny leaves that are dead that just decided they're not going to come off unless I tear part of the plant. I use it, I actually keep them in my pocket for almost everything, because when plants are so tiny and you need to start pruning, using a regular size pruning shear is just too large in my thought process. But when they do get bigger and you start having fruiting plants, like your harvest of tomatoes, squashes, watermelon are in, that's when you get the regular size pruning shears and you prune or snap the stalk off the fruiting plant from the actual plant itself. So don't attempt to tear or swivel large items like giant pumpkins off of your pumpkin patch. Just go ahead and take a regular shear and just snip it off. And then you can stick it in your wagon because wagons are cool, and you can take it to the house because you're not going to break your back because you have your wagon there to handle your giant pumpkin. And then at the very top are your large shears, which take care of all of your arbory needs. So any kind of tree branches, thick thorny branches for raspberries and roses. Also being able to deal with large roots. Getting large nippers are amazing, and they are worth it if you are doing, again, tree planting or tree pruning, which for perennial fruit plants or even nut trees, very handy to have, very lovely to own, along with a long-handed saw. Though I definitely say please be careful with those because I have seen somebody use them, and one time, they were not always keeping their eye on the branch that they would saw, and it conked him in the head, and we were very glad to know that he was still alive. Even though he sawed through a 3-inch branch, and we definitely thought after he fell to the ground that he was dead. Literally, it was just sawing, crack, smack, down. You dead? No, I'm still alive. Okay, good. But again, a long-handled saw, which is literally, like it says, has about 6 to 10 feet of handle, and then at the very end, it has a nice sturdy steel saw, manual saw, which is usually around 6 to 8 inches long, that you use to, again, saw off tree branches. Those and hedge clippers is what I call them. I don't know if they have a different name anywhere else. Hedge clippers are used for trimming or pruning branches. You see them being used for an aesthetic appeal. Personally, I love them for taking care of my raspberry bushes and my apple tree. Those smaller branches that need to be knocked back for pruning, again, giving more energy back to the tree so it can either fruit or it is preserving to grow larger branches, healthier branches, new growth. That's what I use hedge clippers for. Making sure that there are no dead branches on your tree or dead twigs, leaves, that kind of thing. That's what I use my hedge clippers for, which literally look like giant scissors. And you may hear me call them loppers, hedge clippers, scissors, because from where I come from, there are interchangeable names when it comes to certain pruning shears. All right, we've talked about shovels, hoes, pruning shears of many different kinds. I've talked to you about my 3 favorites. Let's go and talk really quickly about rake claws and spades. So rake claws are smaller versions of rakes, like the giant rakes. They are basically a claw that you use to upturn the dirt and make it airy. I've used them a lot for taking care of rough dirt that has a lot of rocks in it, and just making it readily available for root plants or new transplants. Yes, there are a lot of flimsy ones out there, so when you're looking for a good claw, make sure that you see the welded marks of the steel from the two outer prongs on the original prong in the middle. Also test it out. If you're able to bend it, there's no way it's going to last in your garden. Now for a spade, there are 3 different types that I have used. One is a scoop-like spade, which is mainly used for grabbing large chunks of dirt. Usually it's soft, loamy dirt. It is not heavy dirt. You would have a more triangular, shorter spade for that, where you're able to stick it in the ground like a small shovel and slowly pry apart the dirt to, again, just loosen it up. And the third one is a pike-looking or a carrot-shaped spade that is mostly used, again, for transplants. It will usually have measurements or increments in inches on the spade itself to let you know how far it's going to be digging down. Now, I personally keep one of each in there. I got all of them except for the carrot-looking spade from my friend again when his grandfather passed. But in all honesty, again, you don't need them. You can go ahead and just use a regular shovel to do all of that. Or again, a hori-hori can make up for all of that. Now, let's see. Seed trackers are a wonderful tool, but I do not like how much they cost. Seed trackers are or seed dispensers are the little automatic walking seed dispenser tools that you put all your seeds in. It has a wheel on the bottom, has a handle that you hold on to, and then it will dispense the seed every 6 inches, 8 inches, depending on what you set the dial to. And it will dispense all of them until they're all gone in your field. It's a wonderful little tool if you have a very large field, but personally, if you're going to have a small garden, I would just say hand sow, because those usually are $100+ unless you're lucky and you can find one at a thrift store that isn't beat up and battered. But if you're able to find one and you want to restore it, get it. It is wonderful to have as a little gizmo, and it's also a piece of history. But I wouldn't buy it brand new because, again, if you're doing things on a small scale, you really don't need it. Also, that goes for tilling machines. I personally love a hoe more than a tilling machine if I'm doing anything on a small scale, because while a tilling machine is a lot easier on your body, if the ground is so riddled with rocks and things, you shouldn't put a tiller in the ground anyway. If you have a very rocky area where there's slabs of rock, you can't have a tiller anyway. It's a specific area of living that you're able to have a tiller. So usually it's small rock, nice ground, loomy, beautiful black soil. Well, not beautiful black soil. You can have red clay stuck in there. You can have brown soil there as well. But there's a specific type of soil that you have that works with tillers. But if you have one, please don't get offended by this. I just don't feel like the investment is there unless you're going to be doing large rows again, or mass quantity, especially for the price tag that is on it. I've seen tillers go for $300+, and those are the cheap ones. Let's see. I've talked to you about saws, hoes, spades, claws, shovels, hories, wagons, rakes. Rakes are lovely because they are giant sifting machines. So if you have a area that has been recently hoed or tilled, grab a steel rake and take out all of those rocks, and it will leave the dirt behind. I also love horse rakes, which are great for manure. So if you decided that you want to get into manures, or you have animals and you have a horse rake, you can use it in a pig stall, in a goat stall, in a cow pasture, though I would just leave the patties there unless you specifically have a reason for gathering cow patties. And if you don't have any of those animals and you just have a dog, still get one. Because the poop is so huge for my dog that I like to use it, and it takes care of business. All right. All right. I think I've given you enough basic knowledge for a variety of tools that can be used in the garden and what their uses are. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. And I hope I have prepared you to garden with tools. I will talk to you next time. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, guys. Bye.